Call the June 6th Heritage Preservation Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Present.
Cius,
Here.
Bonin, here, Davies, and Chairperson Coleman.
Here. That moves us on to item number 3, adopting the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mueller, seconded.
Second.
Second by Racias.
Yeah.
To adopt the agenda, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All ayes, motion carries. That moves us on to item number 4, visitor presentation. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak about something that is not already on the agenda? Now we moved on to item number 5, approving the previous HPC minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the February 7th, 2023 HPC minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mueller, seconded. Second by Bonin to approve the April 7th, 2023 HPC minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All ayes, motion carries. That moves us on to item number 6, consent agenda. There is no consent item, so we will move on to number 7, action items. This is a public hearing to approve the site alteration permit for 210 Chestnut Street, North, Devin, Creurer, HPC number 2023-02. Liz, would you provide the presentation, please?
Yes. Give me a second. I need to
No problem.
share my screen. Confirm that you can see it on your side. On the screen there. Perfect. Okay. All right. So we have a site alteration permit request in front of us for the historic property at 210 Chestnut Street North, and known as the Moyers Hardware Building in downtown Chaska. So to give you an understanding of the location of this historic site, it's located again in downtown Chaska. It has direct access or frontage onto Highway 41, which is also known as Chestnut Street North in downtown. The block it's on is block 37 of downtown Chaska, which sits in between 2nd Street East and 3rd Street East. The west side of the block is encompassed by Walnut Street. So this site, again, faces off towards Chestnut Street, or what we know as Highway 41, and is a storefront along that roadway. So in terms of the historic significance of this site, it is a local historic resource on the city's local nominations list. It was built back in 1892 by Matt Moyers. He used the property and built the property to be a hardware store. There was also some other ancillary uses within the building, such as a tin shop that was used in the back of the building. And then the upper story, as we know it, has been used as residential. When it was constructed out of Chaska bricks. So being that that's the main material of the building, it does provide itself to be or have historic significance within the time that it was constructed. This building is still made out of Chaska brick, even though from what you can see on the outside is stucco. There's still, that brick is still maintained beneath the stucco. The image that's shown on this slide here is probably the oldest image we have of the building, which dates back to 1918. The building is the one with the upper story porch or balcony detail on it, and a good reference photo to go back to in terms of kind of what was that original character and detailing that was used on the building when it was near its point of inception. A couple other images that I wanted to throw in here, just dating back to the the time of this building and what it looked like. The top left image is from the 1920s when they were doing a parade down Chestnut Street. At one point, the building had a fabric awning, an open shed awning on the front that identified its business, which was also a very common or historical type of application that you would see on commercial buildings, as you see on the building to the left of it too. And then an image from the 1970s and 80s, not quite sure when this photo was taken, but that's what we guesstimate. And as you can see, the stucco has been applied during that time. So there's been, that's our guesstimation as to when the stucco was applied to the building, is around the 70s or 80s timeframe. And then this is an image of how it looks today. So not too much different than what you see from the 70s and 80s image. Still has much of the storefront details that you see kind of over time. The windows have been replaced with historically accurate windows. The brick cornice above has always been maintained, so that is one unique element that has been retained through the years. Same with some of the storefront that you see. Obviously, some minor replacements have been done in that that make it a little bit more contemporary, so to speak. So what the property owner is requesting this evening, they are asking for a site alteration permit for the building, which generally encompasses restoration of the west facade and storefront of the building. So what's facing out towards Chestnut Street. What they'd like to do is remove the stucco on the building and expose the brick, the Chaska brick underneath if possible. They are still doing studies on figuring out if that's even a feasible option for the building. But if the brick underneath is compromised or is damaged beyond repair, they do plan to replace it with a similar masonry product and color to reflect the Chaska brick that is of the original construction of this building. Secondly, they want to restore the windows on the upper story of the building and replace with historically accurate or more historically accurate transom and double hung windows, and those would be painted gray. Rebuilding the arched brick window hoods, which sit above those upper level windows. And then included in that, they would like to rebuild the middle arch to match the outer arches on the windows. So as you can see today, the middle window hood, what we would call it, is a little bit more elongated compared to the other outer windows. And the reason being, if you look back, well, this is probably a good photo, is that one really showed the profile or emphasized the profile of a doorway versus a window there. And over time, it got replaced with a window. So hence why that archway is a little bit different than the other ones. But they would like to match the outer ones with the middle archway as well. They would also like to provide new cast stone sills under the upper level windows. So that would restore it back to kind of what's more original to the building. In addition, they'd like to add some decorative gooseneck lighting to the sign band. This doesn't necessarily need a site alteration permit, but is still worth noting in terms of some of the adornments they want to add to the building to kind of make it more historically accurate. And then also restore the first level storefront window system and paneling with wood and a new door, and then also paint that gray to match kind of the accent colors of the windows. And then they would also maintain the existing brick cornice, but then install a new metal wall top of it. So what that looks like on drawing side of things, this slide shows the elevation drawing of what it's changing to, as well as a rendering to supplement that as well. All those changes are noted on here, again, to expose the brick, restore the archways, restore the windows and the storefront on the west facade there. The two brick samples shown at the bottom here are a couple of the samples that they might choose from if they were to have to replace the Chaska brick underneath. These are a couple options for them to each of them are just a little bit different from the other. The first one has more of a yellow and orange tone to it. And then the second option is kind of more of a creamy yellow tone. From staff's point of view, for brick, added brick to a historic building, we typically like to see a mock-up of the brick that gets selected to see in more of a realistic form how it would be able to blend in well with the existing brick, or if they're replacing all of it, how it could kind of give off that Chaska brick tone. So in terms of evaluation of the site alteration permit, there's a set of criteria that we go through to ensure that it's meeting the city's heritage preservation ordinance, which really refer back to the Secretary of Interior standards for treatment of historic properties. We did lay out 8 standards from that in the report that are relevant to this request. I'm only gonna talk about 3 of these just to kind of be more efficient with our time here, but all of it is really kind of overlapping in terms of what's being proposed and how it's being evaluated, so forth. So one of the standards, standard B, the general compatibility of the architectural style, arrangement, texture, color, arrangement of color and materials used on existing and proposed structures with the character of the historic resource and its site or the historic district. So this is really understanding what's being proposed from a material standpoint, just an overall design standpoint, the detailing that's used, and how that relates to compatibility with the original structure or the overall context as a whole. So just getting back to what they're proposing, their goal and objective here is restoring the building back to more of an original design. As you can see in the older photos of this building and then what they're proposing. Again, they're wanting to expose the Chaska brick underneath, which if that's able to be done, that would be a huge success and feat for this property. And it might be the first of its kind if they are able to do that. Again, they still have to do the kind of tedious testing that has to take place with that, but that is their goal, to try to do that. If not, then they would be replacing the stucco with new masonry, which again, in staff's opinion, that is a level up compared to where it's at today with the stucco. And then also restoring the windows to be more historically accurate is also a huge plus in terms of revisions for this building and bringing it back to more of an original look and style. And the types of windows that they're planning to incorporate would restore what was once out there back during its earlier times. And then with the restoration of the arched window hoods, I think the only comment staff has with that, due to the fact that the middle arched window hood is unique and distinguished from the other two, to retain that moving forward, since that is a part of the original structure and profile of the building, to maintain that moving forward. Regarding standard C, the applicable design guidelines adopted by the commission and how that would relate to what's being proposed here. So there is the Preservation Design Manual that was adopted in 2003 that does reference this property within that in terms of a potential renovation property. It lists out a number of items that can be changed or revised on the property to bring it back to more of a historical and original format. So the items listed within that design manual: repair, replace the cornice cap. They are proposing to do this. Repainting or removing the stucco. They are proposing to do this. Repairing the arched window hoods. They are proposing to do this. Replace the windows on the upper story. They are proposing to do this. Add a canvas awning or bracketed balcony treatment to match the original facade. They are not planning to do this, but again, not all these items have to be done in order for a site alteration permit to be approved. And then lastly, enhance the storefront with another layer of wood trim. So they are proposing to restore that storefront. And this is just the snippet from the preservation design manual if we need to refer back. And then lastly, standard D5, distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or example that characterize a property will be preserved. And generally speaking, pretty much everything they are planning to do with the building will match closely with the original building and construction. Colors and the detailing that they're planning to do on the building and original context, as well as the traditional finishes that you tend to see of that time. So in conclusion, we are asking you to make a motion which would approve the site alteration permit for 210 Chestnut Street North. And then there are a number of conditions that are listed within the report as a part of the approval process. So this approval that you would do this evening would be contingent on those conditions being met as well. The property owner is here if you have questions for them. This is a public hearing too, so we'll also do the formality of opening that up and seeing if there's anyone else that has comments.
Would you like to come up and speak, please? State your name and your address, I guess, for the for the hearing.
I live in Mendota Heights, so do you want my full? Okay, the property is 210 Chestnut. Chaska. Does anyone have questions about any of the proposed?
Could you put up the oldest photograph again of the building?
One or the other one?
That one right there. The existing building had much more glass storefront than what's being shown.
Mm-hmm.
That's one very high. You can see it underneath the awning there. So I don't think there's going to be brick in that area.
Yeah, I think the exploratory work we're doing this week with removing some kind of sample areas of stucco will help us understand more.
Yeah, that's probably going to be wood framing,
Right. So
with stucco over it.
I think based on that, combined with budget limitations, our intent is to honor the original design to the extent our budget allows.
So that ceiling is very high on first floor, right?
It is.
I think that's why this one shows the transom glass,
Mm-hmm.
because that is more in keeping with what it was originally. There wasn't the big band of wood between, but the glass was much higher. So that will be a structural challenge.
We're on pins and needles waiting to see what happens this week. So
I'm a retired architect, so I know that you'll probably need steel to hold the brick up.
maybe we'll need to consult your
Your mason will know.
appreciate the feedback.
Otherwise, I think the building looks great. Great restoration.
Mm,
Real plus for that street.
yes, agreed.
I've had to, in the downtown area, that have had a goal of restoring to the original Chaska brick and have had to replace it with something close?
Since my time here, I have not seen a project that's been able to successfully remove stucco before, and I don't, trying to remember if there's been even one similar of that caliber before. I was just talking about it earlier, that we haven't really had a project that's been successful in getting off stucco without damaging the brick underneath. But it also, at least the projects that have explored it, have only done a very surface level job of studying that and not the full on, taking off the stucco and replacing it with brick or trying to save the brick underneath. So I don't have a very comparable project to compare this to, or at least point to and say, this was a success. And I'm hoping this one actually might be the first successful project. It's going to, time will tell. And, what they see in the field will also be able to inform what they're able to do. But yeah.
Only asking because of the options that you've proposed, like who else has done something where they've tried to match as close as they can?
The Fort Snelling was Chaska brick, and that first option was what was approved for the Fort Snelling project as a close enough.
That yellow.
I do like that first
Yeah,
one.
I like that.
Yeah,
More character than the kind of
Yeah,
monotone,
exactly.
Yep.
monochromatic.
From the city's standpoint, in the event that we're building new structures within downtown Chaska and we're trying to emulate Chaska brick, we've also used a very similar brick as the first option too. Like, for example, and here is a good example of a brick option that's not true Chaska brick, but trying to emulate that. And then also the curling center is another one. So, there's buildings all over town that have tried to emulate it in more contemporary projects.
I agree with everyone else. I like that first option. It looked good.
I guess I'm confused. The 3 windows on top will be similar, or are you?
I think our architect went that way because I was just getting a little OCD on like wanting them the same shape. But if keeping that arch, that's fine.
Oh, same.
Kind of makes me want to do a balcony on the front, but
Right, I know. That's why I was just curious. I mean, I was like, where did that land, I guess?
Strongly about that middle window. If recommendation is to kind of keep that arch, then it's technically still symmetrical.
Is it just the arch, or are you also, because that was a door before, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to stick with the window, so the window lengths will be the same across? Or
In theory, it's again, there's so much unknown. We don't know what.
Yeah, right,
It's
right.
frightening to know what we're getting into, but
What's
Yeah.
underneath?
Yeah.
but we know that the stucco is not the right fit. But we'll see.
Good luck. I hope it.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it's more money, right?
When's the big reveal? When are you
Yeah.
starting?
Well, we're gonna do the exploratory work this week, so
Oh,
Oh,
didn't want to kind of spend money on that if there was disagreement here. So it's kind of like a lot of steps to.
sure.
yeah.
Good.
I'll expect the worst and it'll be fine.
Exactly, right? Anybody have any more discussion on this? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We did open up the public hearing at 7:19. We are closing it at 7:25.
Wait, I want to make sure there's no one online first
Okay,
before
yep,
you close
thank
it. So you opened it, the public.
7:19.
Okay. And then is there anyone online on Zoom that would like to comment on this item? If you do, just raise your hand and you can unmute. I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay. Thank you very much. 7:26 then, we'll close the public hearing. There's no discussion with the commissioners at this time for anything. We've already established that. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendations.
Motion by Commissioner Mueller, seconded by
I'll second.
Commissioner Races. To approve the site alteration permit for 210 Chestnut Street, North Devin, Creurer, HPC number 2023-02, based on the findings and conditions listed in the staff report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All ayes, motion carries. That moves us on to item number 8, discussion items. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Okay,
luck.
good luck. The discussion items, 8A, review Second Street photos for heritage plaques. Liz,
I'm gonna
introduce.
prepare or share another presentation here. So we have one discussion item this evening for what we're calling downtown streetscape project, but more specifically for the heritage panels that have been planned within downtown. Staff has been working with the Chaska Historical Society for the last few months to try to select some photos for heritage panels that have been planned as a part of kind of the overall city's downtown streetscape program. This downtown streetscape project has really come about as basically an outcome of the work that's being done right now on Highway 41. I mean, that's been in the works for 5+ years, but as a part of that, the city saw this as an opportunity to also see how downtown streetscape elements can be incorporated within the city and also give a nod back to the city's history and really, almost make place settings within those within the city to show the city's history and show, or give off some narratives and images of the history of Chaska. So again, this has been years in the making. We have been working with a consulting agency, HKGI, to come up with plans in terms of some of the downtown streetscape elements that will be incorporated in downtown. The exhibit that's shown on this screen here is a map of where all the heritage panels will be located within the city. So these will encompass kiosks, heritage walls, columns, as well as trailhead kiosks as well. There are a couple of these in terms of the heritage walls and the heritage columns that have already been, constructed within the city. As Highway 41 is getting reconstructed as we speak, this project has really been ramped up in terms of selecting the images that will be placed within these heritage walls and columns. And they are kind of parsed off on each kind of major streetway within the city. So we have a heritage wall and columns on 2nd Street West and East. Heritage wall and columns will also be on 3rd Street and 4th Street, as well as 5th Street. So the focus that we're looking at right now, and we're going to kind of take a phased approach at this in terms of selecting the images for each of these different streets and the heritage walls and columns within them. So this evening, our focus is primarily going to be on Second Street. So that was the first street that we worked with the Historical Society and trying to select photos. I do imagine, at least to some level, as we continue going north up the streets and selecting more photos, that will bring them back to you guys, just to give a nod to whether or not it's going in the right direction or if we want to see something different. That's really the purpose of why we're showing you these images. And yeah, just getting the feedback that we need to make sure that we're making the right decisions.
Are these would these be permanent?
Yep.
Okay.
Although they will be interchangeable.
Oh.
So not to say that at some point we can come back and relook at maybe replacing some of the images with something different, or if we want to highlight a different theme or person or building, there will be that capability to interchange the panels if we want to. But I would presume, you know, with this kind of first go at it, you know, I would envision that these images are going to stay in there for a long period of time, unless for some reason, you know, we again want to use these as a way to commemorate something that's really important during the time that we're taking a look at them. So again, what we're going to show you in these next few slides is images that have been selected for Second Street East and West. The west side is the side which already has the heritage wall and 2 columns in place today. So the street improvement work has already occurred on Second Street, both on the east and west side. So that's why you see the heritage wall and the columns there. And then there's also 2 columns on the east side. And eventually there will also be heritage kiosks. We're not quite far with those yet in terms of what the information or dialogue that's going to be shared on those kiosks. So I'm sure at some point we'll also be coming back with kind of what we're moving forward with on that as well. So the first streetscape element we're looking at is the heritage wall, which is on the west side of Second Street. So again, this wall has already been constructed and it currently sits on the north side of Second Street West. So where the Gale building is, or if I go back to this map, it's on the north, kind of on the northwest side of Second Street as it abuts Pine Street there. So if you're familiar with where the parking lot and the entrance into the parking lot is off of Second Street West, that wall is basically right beside that. So there's 4 panels in the heritage wall there. And, you know, we've kind of done a high overview of kind of the themes that we're trying to hit with each of these streets and so forth. So the theme that we really tried to highlight with Second Street is commerce, since the buildings out there really are more commercial in nature, and that's historically how they've been used too. We wanted to bring in some historical images and people that were exceptional in the commerce industry, and why Second Street was so vibrant, you know, during the earlier years of Chaska, so late 1800s and early 1900s. So the images that we selected for the heritage wall, one of them is an interior shot of the Gale Butcher building. Slide here, but it's basically where the chiropractic offices as a butcher shop. by the Gale family. So again, this image on the top left here is an interior shot, which I feel like is such a eye-catching image to begin with, just with the raw meat kind of hanging there and the people who work the counter. So that would be the first image. The second image would be of Mr. Glotzel, who was a shoemaker within the city. And he operated out of the accounting building on the south side of 2nd Street West. So he had his own shoe store and shoe repair. This image is of Mr. Glotzel when he was just a young man, the shoemaking business. So I thought it would be nice to incorporate a portrait image of the third image. We wanted to bring in an old image of what the streetscape used to look like on 2nd Street West. So the third image is really showing 3 of the buildings on the south side of 2nd Street West of what used to be a former grocery store, the LJ Weller building, and then a commercial building adjacent to that. So when we're looking at this photo here, it really is an old photo, and yeah, it's dated 1910, of this arrangement of buildings that still exists today. So this one, this photo just again kind of captures that moment in time of the early 1900s of kind of what that commercial streetscape looked like on 2nd Street. And then the fourth image is an interior shot of the Chaska Herald building. And it's basically the workers there. And I think this man here, I think, is a part of the Dutoit family. So the original founders of the Chaska Herald building, but them working on a very, very old historical printing machine within that building. So when I'm referring to that building, the corner building on Pine and 2nd Street West here. So that is kind of the arrangement that we've selected for the heritage wall. And I think the thought process behind it, again, was to show kind of a variety of both interior people shots as well as exterior shots to kind of commemorate that moment in time in more of the commercial industry that 2nd Street is known for. We feel there's always a couple ways of looking at the type of images that you select for these panels. But I think this one just gives a nice, well-rounded look at some of the people and places that are very notable for 2nd Street. But I do welcome any comments or anything like that before I move on to the next slide.
Will there be descriptions, obviously?
I don't think there will be any descriptions on the wall itself, but we are looking into doing QR codes
Oh, okay.
associated with the images. So you'll be able to scan with your
Sounds-
phone and bring up the descriptions for each of those images.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Again, I think that's still a detail we're still exploring. It could still be looked at for a brief description under the images within the panel. I don't know how that would be done, but I think right now, from just a more efficient standpoint, I think we're looking at the QR code option to see.
The pictures are awesome to look at, right? But hearing you so eloquently walk us through it,
Yeah,
you'd be
helps
missing
to-
out. You'd be missing out on that, I think, a little
Yeah.
bit without that. So,
What are the pictures going to be? I mean, how they're going to be encased, right? I mean, it's
We're still figuring out that
Oh,
detail as
okay.
well. kind of the order of operations here is, we wanted to select the images and see what we could find really, which the Historical Society has been wonderful to work with. Steve has even been a part of that collection of photos. But it does take time to find these images and figure out what ones actually would make sense for these different areas. So we did want to present that to you guys just in terms of, is this going in the right direction? If it is, then we can start to talk to our consulting party to figure out, what type of medium is going to be used on the paneling. Because again, you can look at it a few different ways or use a few different methods to apply it to the wall, whether that's in a glass casing or it's more of a exposed durable type material. So yeah, those are things we still need to figure out right now.
I mean, I think it's great because it highlights that area. I mean,
One of the difficulties is the shape of the openings are
yeah.
not at all the shape of the photographs. We're gonna
Yes, yeah,
lose a lot in 3 of those,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's another thing we need to figure out. I think, obviously the portrait will fit in just fine to the paneling. We didn't want to limit ourselves to only portrait shots or up and down shots, because I think that would have taken out a lot of options. So we are figuring out, is there a way to either use the entire image and just center it within the panel, or would it make more sense to crop it down and just have it crop to the more significant side of the photo?
but then if you did the QR code, you could bring it up and then see the whole picture.
Image. Yep. So that's a good point, that there are ways to bring in more information without just completely nixing it out of the bunch because it doesn't fit.
Yeah, you have to think about what a person's going to see too, because
Right.
unfortunately, they're kind of low.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not all that easy to see unless you're going to get down and look close.
Yep.
The portrait of Edward Glatzel, that's going to be fantastic because of the contrast.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's really going to work well. The other
Yep.
ones are going to be tough.
But they highlight the area, so I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
good.
I mean,
They're good photos. For historical, they're good when you see some of the other ones.
But any other questions or comments on this one? I'll move on to the next set of images. So on the same side of 2nd Street West, there's going to be 2 columns. There's one on the north side and then one on the south side. So they'll almost kind of be kitty corner to each other, where they've done some of the streetscape improvements and pedestrian connection improvements across the street there. So the north column, so this would be near the Gale building. Forgetting what this one is, but we've selected photos that have to do with the glass block building. And I guess you can see it in here. The glass block building is basically the building where Patrons is today, as well as additional commercial and professional service above that. The Historical Society was able to find an exterior and an interior shot of that building, which we thought would work well there, and having them be able to was a good harmony there. So we have the old image or exterior of the glass block building. So very soon after built, and then the interior shot when it used to be used as a grocery store or a commercial store where you could buy a multitude of things there. We felt it was a nice connection between the 2 images there. So that would be for the north side.
I think those are great.
which highlights a building that's on the north side of Second Street. And then south of that, on the south side with two other panels, trying to highlight a building on the south side of Second Street. So the two images, again, feed into that same inside outside theme. So we selected the LJ Weller building, which is, again, the chiropractic building, kind of stone stucco building on the south side there. The old image of that, and then an interior shot when it was also used as a furniture store. Having those two images together felt. That's what we have for the west side for the heritage columns. Thoughts, feelings, comments?
Like it.
I think you guys
It's a
are
great start.
Yep,
right direction for
Yep.
sure.
perfect. How exciting.
Yeah,
It's gonna be really cool.
we're excited to get this moving along. It's only been in front of us, I think, for like the last 2 years, and we finally have made a lot of movement on it, which again, a lot of that thanks and praise goes to the Historical Society because they've been volunteering their time to find all these images for us, which is amazing. So, and then on the east side of Second Street, for the north column, so again, we'll have a column on the north side and then on the south side. The selection of photos on this side was a little bit more limited. So we weren't able to capture any photos on the north side of Second Street as we were on the south side. So we don't exactly see that same theme of interior and exterior on this side. Because again, we just had a very limited amount of photos to select. So the two images that are selected for the north side are of buildings that are on the south side, but again, limited. So one of the images is a historical shot from 1915 of the motor service building, which is basically, oops. Oh, I don't think I have a good image there. It's basically the building just to the right of the building shown on this image here. So that has historically been a car oriented use. And through the years, I mean, we've seen car oriented uses on this side of the street as well. So it's almost fitting that it's kind of retained that use over time. But this image right here, we felt was really compelling and really, again, an eye catcher of kind of the historic elements you tend to see of that time. Yep, and two of the people within this image are Al and Walt Middlestead, which again are the original owners of the building. And then the second image is also a very historic photo of the Dunn Brothers building, or Bridges building. So on the corner on the south side of Second Street East and Chestnut Street there. I don't think we have a date on this image, but it's safe to say it was probably late 1800s, early 1900s that was taken. Image. And on the south side, again, we wanted to capture the history of people immigrating to the city of Chaska, you know, back in, you know, the mid 1800s. People were coming by river to get dropped off into the city when they moved here. So they would come by steamboat. So the image on the top right portion is a steamboat photo of people being dropped off at the river into Chaska, which again is kind of the crux of the inception of our city here. So we felt it was a good image to commemorate really what Chaska has come to be by. And the reason why we selected 2nd Street East is it's the closest street and where we're putting streetscape elements, the closest to the river. But also when people would get dropped off on the riverbanks there, the first place they would go is 2nd Street East into this commercial building on the corner, which again is one of the oldest buildings in Chaska. So they would get, all their resources that they need as soon as they got dropped off, clothes, food, whatever, to kind of start their life here. So we felt like there was a good connection there in terms of the steamboat image and the placement of this column. And then the second image is of the Faber building. So again, this building on the corner here. Commercial center for when people were dropped off. This is a very, well, it's an older image, but I wouldn't say it's probably of the same oldness compared to the other images we've captured, but still a pretty compelling image in terms of, when Chaska didn't have our levee system and when it would flood. I mean, it would be a yearly thing most of the time. But again, we didn't have a lot of images to choose from, but this one still stood out just in terms of some of the phenomenons that we experience in the city as the river would flood downtown Chaska on a yearly occasion. So that is what we came to on the south side. Any comments, questions, concerns on 2nd Street East? And we did share the extra images that were pulled for both the east and west sides. So hopefully you were able to take a look at those. But again, there wasn't a whole lot to choose from there. But not to say that, these images were subpar or anything like that. I still think they show a really unique part of history. But that's what we got.
I don't think any different comments from me than previous. I think you guys are doing a great job and on the right path. And it was enjoyable for me to read through and look through.
I mean, you got the river with the steamboat and then you got the flooding
Yeah.
of the river.
Yeah, we tried to
It's like,
find
that's
some commonalities there. It wasn't just throwing out random images.
right.
I think it was the north side of 2nd Street East where, can you go back one? Or no, yeah, this one. That building, the motor service building, still has that garage door on it, right? Yeah, so I like that you chose this one. That building stands out to me, at least, on that street, so.
It's where Chaska Auto used to be.
Right.
Oh,
Thanks for putting the 65 flood in there. That was my first experience in Chaska.
yeah.
Shoveling mud out of houses. It's cool.
Yeah, I think that's great.
It's quite a story too about the Daisy and the people coming down from St. Paul and how they partied on the boat.
Yeah.
Will that be part of the QR code then too, do you think?
I think, well, we're going to work with the Historical Society and, hopefully come up with some good descriptions and
Yeah,
narratives
yeah.
to partner with each of the images. But yeah, I think they have a collection of knowledge of just what goes beyond the image that you're seeing of, what really took place. I think Dale Butcher Shop We already had a great deal of information of that building because Tracy Swanson put together an oral narration of that building and what the stories were like inside that building. So I'm hoping we can try to do something similar with each of these images if we're able to bring in some of the information we know about the history back then. So,
I mean, it sounds like getting people so involved in history. That's so awesome in the town. I mean, I think this is huge.
Yeah, history on
You
the
know?
streets. I mean, it's
Yeah,
perfect.
history on the
But the
streets. It's
QR
just,
codes are just such a blessing.
yeah,
they really,
yeah, that'll be really, really neat.
it's so hard to just narrow down even selecting images. And then, the next step is, well, what story do you want to tell for that? And I think, like you said, a QR code is such a blessing in terms of you can really expand
Yes.
the
Yeah.
knowledge that you get with that image within technology that you wouldn't be able to do just, on a heritage wall. So
A lot of power in place history rather than being in our building, historical building,
right.
and reading it, but actually being on the spot is.
Yeah, and on the spot,
is
exactly.
great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting people
Yeah.
involved with history that's awesome.
I'm hoping that, as we refine this more and more, that some of the other stuff that we've put together, like the downtown walking tour, we can try to bring all of that together. There's probably a way to, once we do have all the information and descriptions and whatnot with these images, that we can
Right.
bring it together of, maybe the walking tour also has the QR codes and
Mhm.
you can do your little walk through town and just get all that history in one place. So a lot of long range stuff hopefully to come from this as well. Yep. All
Is
right.
there any more discussion? Liz, are you good with?
Yeah, I'm good. I wanted to get your feedback on where we were going with this and just hear good things. So that's very reassuring that we're moving in the right direction. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky. I had a question. I typed it in, but I don't think you guys seen it yet. I'm curious about East 2nd Street. I'm at 107 East 2nd Street, what used to be the nail salon. I plan on purchasing this building, and I'm wondering if there's any plans to, or anyone I can talk to about restoring this building.
Yeah, I mean, you would probably be talking to me. I'm Liz Hanson. I'm the city planner for Chaska, but I'm also the liaison for the Heritage Preservation Commission, but also, some of the funding, grants and loan program that we have with the city. So if you have questions on, restoration opportunities, I'd be the person to talk to, and I'd be happy to give out my email and
Is that acceptable? I would do. I ran this nail salon for the last 7 years, and currently I am closed. I am hoping to purchase this building to work with Southern Valley Alliance. There's 2 apartments above, and I'd like to turn that into safe housing for women escaping DV. Is that a possibility?
I think we can certainly talk about that in terms of, what's allowed from a use standpoint. So yeah, we can talk about a number of things regarding your building, whether that be the exterior and changes or uses that you can have in the building. So.
Okay. May I have your contact info?
Yep. Just let me know when you're ready and I can give it out for you.
1 second. And it's Liz Hanson.
Yes. And Liz is short for Elizabeth.
All right, go ahead.
And then my email is my first initial E. So E Hanson, HANSON
Okay.
at Chaska mn.gov.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there more on this particular building, the history of it into?
You have questions on the history of it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd be able to share that with you as well if that's something that you want.
Awesome. I will shoot you an email. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Yep, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I think, where were we?
Any more discussion?
Not under this one. I think we can go on to
Okay.
other business.
That moves us on to item number 9, other business, the Chaska Historical Society flyer. Liz, can you introduce that?
I was just gonna bring these up. Just one second here. Just wanted to give a plug for the Chaska Historical Society in terms of notification that they send out. I'm just going to share my screen here really quick just to show this. So the Historical Society, goes through a number of exhibits through their building there, which are really, really incredible, just in terms of the work and all of the history and narrations that they're able to do with these exhibits. So I just want to highlight this in terms of, what's coming up in the very near future. So they have a new exhibit occurring on June 8th, which really looks back at kind of how health and wellness was looked at in terms of 100 years ago. And Steve might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but what they're really trying to highlight here in this exhibit. But just wanted to give a plug that this exhibit will be open on June 8th. So if anyone wants to go and visit that, kids are welcome. Everyone's welcome to come and experience that exhibit. It sounds like it's going to be more interactive. So you'll be able to really be engaged with the exhibit there. There's a couple other events happening pretty soon that the Historical Society is facilitating. So in September of 2023, free old time medicine show reenactments for family fun. This would be at the Chaska History Center on Friday, September 15th, and then Saturday, September 23rd. And then in October of 2023, I only heard very minor rumblings of this, but I was very intrigued by it.
Two.
But been looking into doing a Chaska ghost tour within downtown and providing some stories and stories that they've heard within historic downtown, and then possible explanations too. So just want to keep people aware of those upcoming exhibits and events that are being put on by the Chaska Historical Society.
I do like the expanded summer hours.
Yes. Yep, so they're usually open, what is it, Steve? 4 p.m. during weekdays.
And pretty much you're working.
Yeah. So it is exciting to see that their doors will be open at later hours. So if you wanted to go and visit these exhibits or this new exhibit, there will be opportunity to do so on June 8th. All right.
Minnesota River Bluffs Trail Connection.
Yep, So we got an invitation from MnDOT, or the the Minnesota Department of Transportation for a project that is coming up relatively quickly here. It's the Minnesota River Bluffs Trail Connection. So basically where the old railway used to sit, kind of on the north side of town, the rail bed has been removed, but basically that area has been anticipated to be reused as a regional trail. So they are ramping up the discussion and planning to implement that trail on the old or former railway on the north side of town. And there is kind of a process that takes place from a review standpoint that the Minnesota Department of Cultural Resources is carrying out. So as a part of that, they invite kind of all applicable agencies within kind of the vicinity of that project, since there is potential for historic resources to either be impacted or what's the right word, discovered as a part of the overall project. So they provide this invitation in line with state statute requirements to see if this is something that the HPC wants to be a part of in terms of a participatory agent in that project. So I just wanted to let you know of that, if that's something that we want to be a part of. I don't have a lot of information as to what the format of that necessarily looks like and what the time commitment would be. If I had to guess on it, I think it would more so be just informational as to, you know, how they're gearing up the project and what they're finding, and then providing that as basically a informational to us, but also to get our feedback on things discovered as a part of the process. So again, if it's something that we want to be a part of, we do have to respond back to MnDOT or the Crew agency if we're interested, and we have to do that, I think, by the end of the month here of June. Yeah, by
I for
June
one
19th.
interested. And it goes right past my house.
Yep. So you'll have direct access
Yeah,
onto
I
that
would be
trail.
interested in that. I mean, I don't know if we're all deciding tonight, but
Yeah, and really,
I for one would be.
okay. And that's really what I wanted to ask and hear is
Yeah.
you're interested in being a part of the participation of the review of this trail. And I can get more information as to what that really entails.
Sure.
Because I'm not sure, you know, what the hours or the times and stuff like that they envision for agencies that do participate. It might be myself during kind of the typical office hours, but then informing you guys, or
Sure.
there might be an opportunity for you guys to be able to participate
Feedback.
in person, or, you know, so I'll have to keep you posted on that.
Okay.
For sure. But I can at least get back to them and say, yep, we're interested. Let us know what to do next.
Okay,
So
thank you.
appreciate that feedback. I'll keep you posted.
All right, thank you. Is there any commissioner that has anything else to add? Other business?
No.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Motion,
You want me to make,
yes,
I'll
motion
make a
by,
motion to adjourn.
motion by Commissioner Mueller, seconded
Second.
by Commissioner Bowen to adjourn.